Temporal... what?
We were once all in one ship, yes? When we went through the tachyon storm, something unusual happened. Though it appears you are alone, everyone is still in the same ship, just moving through time at different speeds. Like for Jankum, time moves faster, but for you...
Time goes by really slow.
Yes.
If there was a motto to the current era of Star Trek, it would be, a little bit for everyone. An era defined by variety. Here's something new and modern. Here's a couple of throwbacks to older shows. Here's something for the Adult Swim crowd. Here's something to give Brent Spiner a paycheck. And of course, here's something for the kids. For me, Star Trek Prodigy ended up being the biggest surprise of modern Trek. One can see many ways in which Star Trek for kids could go wrong. How it might dumb things down and not respect its young audience. How it might become a parade of references to old Trek in an attempt to get the new generation into the iconography of the old. Yes, these old people have to be there. You must respect their legacy, goddammit. While Prodigy isn't perfect, it does largely avoid these pitfalls. There are a couple of legacy cameos throughout the show's run. Episode 6 Kobayashi is pretty egregious for this, but there's more original stuff than not. And I never sensed the show was talking down to its younger audience. In fact, I'd say it did a great job translating the original series and the next generation's classic sci-fi puzzle of the week style of storytelling on top of what is basically Nickelodeon's Space Cases 2 Electric Boogaloo. I think today's episode is the perfect example of Star Trek Prodigy's strengths, how it handles complex science fiction ideas in a way a younger audience can work with, how well realized its characters are, and how it manages to stand on its own in an ocean of Trek. Originally premiering on Paramount Plus on January 20th, 2022, then first airing on Nickelodeon on July 29th, 2022, Time Amok is the 8th episode of Star Trek Prodigy's first season. It was written by Nikhil S. Jaram, who is a staff writer on The Mysteries of Laura and Shades of Blue, and was co-directed by Olga Wanova and Sung Shin, who are both storyboard artists on Young Justice. The young quote-unquote crew of the US Protostar have been struggling a bit to work together, so the ship's holographic advisor, who takes the form of Voyager's Captain Janeway, tries to walk them through some mental exercises on the holodeck. Classic riddles like getting a chicken, fox, and bag of grain across the river. You know the one.
If you take the grain first, that leaves the chicken and the fox. Oh dear, that won't work.
Mr. Fox, you wouldn't hurt a feather.
Jacob's hungry. Let's eat the fox.
It's my duty as captain to listen to my crew, but when they say stuff like that, gonna ignore.
However, this does nothing but frustrate the kids more, to the point where Dahl finally blurts out in front of the Janeway hologram that they're not a Starfleet crew, rookies or not, but just a bunch of kids who stole the ship. Everybody scatters to pout, and nobody seems all that bothered that the ship is flying directly into a tachyon storm. Now, these are a bunch of misfit children who recently escaped a prison planet, so it's understandable that they don't know much, but any longtime Star Trek fan will tell you, do not fly into space anomalies. You're either going to find an omnipotent being who wants to run tests on the crew, or you're going to turn into fish, or there's going to be some wild time manipulations. So they fly into the storm, it disrupts the ship's engines, and oopsie-daisy, the kids now find themselves separated in time, experiencing time at dramatically different rates. Some of them are going through time incredibly fast, others are going through time incredibly slow. All the while the ship's engine is going critical and will explode either any second now or within the next 3 to 5 years, depending on your perspective.
Janeway!
What happened? Where is everyone?
There was this weird purple ripple, then everyone vanished. And now everyone's moving weird. I've been alone ever since. Where were you?
I was with Jankum after we entered the tachyon storm. There was an alarm, and then the proto-drive.
The proto-drive what?
We need to see the engine.
So the kids have to work together, even though they are unable to interact with each other directly, separated by the forces of time, with only the Janeway hologram capable of communicating with all of them. Jankum Pog assesses the problems with the proto-drive, Zero blueprints out a device that'll fix things, Dahl builds most of the device but is missing a crucial component, and Gwendala tracks the component down while being chased around by an evil robot made by the ship's 3D printer. It's a long story, season arc stuff. But despite all of this, they don't quite manage to get to the finish line. That just leaves Rok. She's the ship's youngest crew member, by like a lot. The rest of the crew are teenagers or teenage equivalent, But Rok is 8 years old, emotionally sensitive, and just having a bad time. Because of her large, rocky frame, Gwen has been trying to force Rok to play the role of security officer, but that's just not Rok's personality at all. She doesn't want that. Rok ends up stuck in the slowest time zone, and the isolation and scope of the issue leaves her crippled in fear. At first. But the thing is, she has a lot of time to think about things. A lot of time to find her footing, learn about the problem, and work towards a solution. How long do you think it would take a young child to learn quantum mechanics by herself? Because that's how long it takes.
How long was she alone?
Too long.
Well, those are some terrifying implications. Time Amok is a wonderful, little, mostly self-contained story. There's the whole season arc stuff with the villainous Dreadnought self-replicating himself onto the ship, but you don't need to have been following the entire series to follow any of that stuff, or have seen any other episode of Star Trek for that matter. The episode title is a reference to Amok Time, the classic original series episode where Spock has to have sex or he dies, but Time Amok itself doesn't have anything to do with Amok Time. It's a complete standalone tale, a classic space anomaly time adventure in the vein of Next Generation's Timescape or Voyager's Shattered. A real classic Trek well to draw from that I think anyone can pop in and appreciate pretty easily. In fact, the only major criticism I have for Time Amok is that it's just too short. The episode only has 24 minutes to set up and resolve both the science fiction timey-wimey stakes, the group stakes of the crew having to learn to work together in stressful times, and the personal stakes of Rok finding courage and her new interest in science. And the episode does a really good job at making that work, but an episode twice as long would have had time to really get creative with it, really dig into the ideas here. The whole time zones things doesn't really factor into the story as much as it could have. We don't get to have a lot of fun with time manipulation. It's more like the 5 leads are separated in alternate dimensions, or heck, they could just be locked in separate rooms and the results would be mostly the same. The characters never interact with each other when there's space for some really fun ideas. Like a character in a slower time zone could be helping Gwen get away from Dreadnought by setting Looney Tunes traps. Rok's storyline is emotionally fraught for sure, but imagine how much more impact it would have had if we could spend 5 minutes focusing on her isolation instead of just 30 seconds. There's also the whole beat of the Janeway simulation finally learning that the protostar was stolen, which should be serious business and affect the relationship between the kids and their holographic mentor, but Janeway just kind of does a quick, you're a Starfleet crew at heart, whatever, and we just move on. We ain't got time for this. But Nickelodeon has so rarely allowed for hour-long programming in its 45-year history, so you work with what you got. And what you got is a great premise and some surprisingly heartbreaking character work. I think there's a case to be made that Time Amok is Prodigy's best episode. It's certainly my favorite. Prodigy really is a great little series, one that has been shockingly disrespected by both Paramount and Nickelodeon, with the show being one of the few new Trek programs to get the cut from streaming for tax purposes axe. Kids shows really don't get enough respect, especially the good ones. But that's a discussion for another longer video. This was just a sample.